Hi, Mr. Richards here. Today's lesson is on percent of change. And percent of change can be defined as when an increase or decrease is expressed as a percent. Percent of increase can be defined as the ratio of an amount of increase to the previous amount of course expressed as a percent, compared to percent of decrease, which is the ratio of an amount of decrease to the previous amount and, like percent of increase, this is also expressed as a percent. Our directions in our first example state whether each percent of change is a percent of increase or a percent of decrease. Then find the percent of change, round to the nearest whole percent. Well, our original is 32. We're going to a new of 40. So this is an example of a percent of increase. And we can use a proportion to help us solve. And this proportion is going to be the change over the original is going to equal, we'll call it R, that's going to be our percent increase, over 100. And so our amount of change in this question was 40 minus 32 over the original, which was 32, equals R over 100. Well, 40 minus 32 is 8 over 32 equals R over 100. And if I use cross products to solve, R times 100 is going to be equal to 32 times R. 8 times 100 is, well, 800. 32 times R is 32R. And now if I solve this one-step equation, divide by 32 on both sides, and 25 equals R. So this is a 25% increase. So we have percent of increase of 25%. In our next question, we have an original of 20 and a new of 4. So this is from 20 to 4 a decrease. So we'll say this is a percent of decrease. Now to set up this proportion, remember, this is going to be our change over the original. This is going to equal our percent change, which could be R over 100. Now our change, our new was 4 minus the original of 20 over the original of 20. And that's going to equal R over 100. So when you're looking for the change is going to come. The change is going to be new minus original. And that's what we did here, our new of 4 minus the original of 20. In the first example, it was the new of 40 minus the original of 32. The reason we do this is so we can get a negative percentage. 4 minus 20 is negative 16 over 20 equals R over 100. And so now as I cross multiply here, we'll have negative 16 times 100 being equal to 20 times R. Well, negative 16 times 100 is negative 1,600 equals 20R. And if we solve this one-step equation now by dividing by 20 on both sides, 1,600, or a negative 1,600, divided by 20 is equal to negative 80. And so this is a negative 80% for our answer. So from an original of 20 to a new of 4, this is a percent of decrease, negative 80%. Now to get technical here, it is a percent of decrease. The percent change was negative 80%. If you were to write this in a sentence, though, you would say the percent of decrease is 80%. So it gets a little kooky, I guess. We have the percent of decrease. The percentage we found was negative 80%. But when you put it in a sentence, it'll be the percent of decrease is 80%. The negative just kind of goes away since we use the decrease word. When they're separate, it's okay to use the negative sign here. When they are together, though, it just decrease is 80%. The price a used bookstore pays to buy a book is $5. The store sells the book for 28% above the price that it pays for the book. What is the selling price of the book? The 28% is an increase. And so what we're looking to do here is to say, okay, if I have my proportion, my percentage is 28, and that'll be over 100, where we have the change over the original here. And so the original in this question is 5. And our change can be found by taking the price they sold it at X and subtracting 5. As we're looking at new minus original. Well, now we get to cross multiply this, where we will have 100 times X minus 5, and that's going to equal 28 times 5. Distribute here. 100 times x is 100x minus 5. Just kidding. 100 times negative 5 is a minus 500. And that's going to equal 28 times 5, which is 140. We have a two-step equation here to solve now. Add 500 to both sides. $100x is going to equal 640. And lastly, if you divide by the 100 on both sides, x is going to equal 6.40, or a final answer of $6.40. So in setting this up, remember, we have our change over original equals our percent here over 100. And for the change, we can take the new minus the original, is another way of looking at it, over the original, equals the percent over 100. So there are two ways of looking at our percent change proportions here today. And that's what we did. Our new price was what we were looking for. So x minus our original of 5 over 5 equals 28 over 100. A meal for two at a restaurant costs $32.75. If the sales tax is 5%, what is the total price of the meal? I'd like to show you two different ways of solving this. The first involves finding the tax and then adding the tax. Well, 5% as a decimal is 0.05. Remember, percent to decimal, you have to move the decimal point over twice, and it doesn't matter which level of math you're in. 5% is 0.05, and that's still one of the most common mistakes I see. Now, $32.75 times the 5% tax results in $1.6375. Now, tax is always rounded to the nearest penny, and so this is going to be $1.64 for the tax. Now, that's the taxed amount. We're looking for the total cost. And so to find the total cost, take your $32.75, add in your $1.64 to get a total price of $34.39. That's just one way of solving. Now, 100% of your meal is equal to $32.75. 5% of your meal, we don't know, but that's the tax. So if I were to add the 100 with the 5, I'm going to end up paying 105% of $32.75. So another way of solving this is to take, all right, $32.75 times 105% as a decimal, which is 1.05. When I do this, my total is 34.3875. And since tax is rounded to the nearest cent, I get $34.39 this way as well. So either we can find the tax amount, then add it to our bill, or you can recognize that, wait a minute, my bill is 100%. The tax here is 5%, so I'm paying 105% of my price, then multiply by the 1.05 and round to get your answer. Both methods work. You can use either. A dog toy is on sale for 20% off the original price. If the original price of the toy is $3.80, what is the discounted price? Well, just like our sales tax, there's two different ways to solve this. I can find 20% of $3.80 by taking 0.20 times our $3.80, and that total is 76 cents. Then, since that's the discounted amount, I can take $3.80 minus this 76 cents to get $3.04. So you can find the discounted amount and subtract, just like we found the tax amount and added. The other way, if it's a 20% discount, that means if full price is $100 minus the 20% discount, that means you're going to be paying 80% of $3.80. And this is a way of solving it as well. we can take 0.80 times the $3.80, and that will also get us $3.04. So whether you take 20% to find the discounted amount and then subtract, or subtract recognizing that, okay, if it's 20% off, I'm paying 80% of that price, and then multiply to get your new total. Either way works. $3.04 is your answer to this last example of this lesson on percent of change. Good luck.